Thank you for coming. Today I'm going to be talking about the 5 essential traits of iconic logos. But first, a little bit about myself. So my name is Cajun. I'm a designer here at Lookup. I specialize in brand identity design with 7 years experience working with clients such as Google, Nike, and Twitch. I love logos. And when I say I love logos, I mean I fucking love them. So much so, let's start off with, what is a logo? So the word logo is short for logotype. And what a logotype is a distinctive typeface, lettering style, or graphic element used to represent your brand. That can be a symbol like the Twitter logo, it can be a lettering style word mark like Google, a monogram like IBM, or a combination of your symbol and your word mark like Spotify. The 5 traits I'm going to be talking about today are simple, appropriate, distinctive, versatile, and timeless. I'm going to run through these pretty quick, and at the very end I'll look up some questions. So first, let's start with simple. The reason I start with simple is because it's the hardest one to achieve. And if you don't achieve simplicity, it's almost impossible to achieve the other 4 traits. Simple logos are easier to absorb and understand, but they're easier to recall when you see them again. A great example of a simple logo is the Nike logo. Think about it. The world's largest shoe manufacturer, worldwide, uses a simple graphic swoosh to represent their brand. That's the definition of a simple logo. Now, good logos feature something unique without being overdrawn. An example of that is the FedEx logo. It features something very unique, but it's not overdrawn at all. Some of you in this room may not even notice it, but now you'll never be able to unsee it. So the negative space between the E and the X creates an arrow. Why? Because it represents what the company does. They're a shipping company. They're fast forward, moving forward, and it represents that. Again, something unique without being overdrawn. The second trait is appropriate. First, you need your logo to be simple, but then it needs to be appropriate for its intended target audience. It needs to be appropriate in the feeling that it conveys. Logos don't need to say what the company does. That's the biggest misconception. Think about it. Does the Apple logo have electronic as its symbol? Does BMW have a car? Does American Airlines have an airplane? No, it's not needed. An example of an appropriate logo is the Toys R Us logo. Why? Because think of its target audience. It's children. They look at this logo and they can relate to it. They look at it and they're like, yeah, that funky color scheme, that backwards R and that star, that's how I draw. But would this execution of a logo be appropriate for every company? No, it wouldn't. Think about a corporate company, like Scotiabank. So Scotiabank recently rebranded, which is the logo on the left, the right. But imagine Scotiabank rebranded to the same execution as Toys R Us, the same funky style, color scheme, typeface. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I probably wouldn't trust a company with that style of logo with my money and my mortgage. So again, the logo has to be appropriate in the feeling that it conveys for its intended target audience. Now, the third trait is distinctive. Your logo needs to be simple, it needs to be appropriate, but it needs to be distinctive enough that you can remember seeing it after only once. It needs to be distinctive enough to identify it amongst your competitors. And the goal of a logo should be able to identify it without the company name. And a great example of that is Target. It's the most distinctive logo in the world, debatably, in my opinion. And to prove that, a company did a test where they got 100 random people to redraw famous logos. One of the logos they did was Target. So I want to focus your attention at this graphic here. Top right is least accurate, bottom left is most accurate. So as you can see, there's 2 common themes, red and Target. So this shows that the logo is very distinctive. 100 random people pretty much got the logo right, except for this one random person who put a box. But that's okay. But if you look at the evolution of the logo, from 1962 to now, the logo hasn't changed much. It's almost identical. It still has the core elements, the red and the target. It's just been simplified. So what I'm saying here is people around my generation and older have been able to identify this brand because it's been the same since when it started. Now, another logo they did was Starbucks. And this was an example of a very undistinctive logo. And yes, they're very iconic, and every time I say Starbucks, something visually comes to your head, whether it's the white cups or the green color. But but that doesn't mean their logo is distinctive. And this is an example of how it's not. Again, less accurate, most accurate. One common theme, green, which is great. Brand awareness, brand color. But right around the second and third row, the detail starts to drop off. Even in the top right, all it is a coffee cup. But if you look at the evolution of the logo, it's stayed kind of the same, but what they've done is simplified and simplified and simplified to get to where they are today. But this shows the logo isn't simple enough because there's too much detail there. Way too much detail for a designer like myself to redraw or the average consumer. So again, your logo must be distinctive enough to remember it after only seeing it once. Now, the fourth trait is versatile. Your logo needs to be simple, it needs to be appropriate, it needs to be distinctive, but it also needs to be versatile to work everywhere you want to use it. And I mean everywhere. Think about black, think about white, think about color, think about big, think about small, horizontal, vertical, everywhere. A great example of that is the Apple logo. Why? Because it works in big sizes and small sizes. It works small enough to work with a favicon, which is right beside your URL. It looks great on products like iPhones and MacBooks, and it even looks great on social media. But one common theme across all these images I just showed was the logo never changed. And what I mean by that is some companies have different variations of their logo to use on different platforms. But the definition of a versatile logo is the logo that can work in all sizes and platforms, and Apple is an example of that. Now, the fifth and final trait I'm going to talk about is timeless. The reason I save it for last is because it's the hardest to achieve and the most unpredictable. But what you can do is set it up that you're in the best place possible to become timeless. And how you do that is you achieve the other four traits first, and then, and only then, are you in the best place possible to have a timeless logo. A timeless logo is effective in 10, 20, or even 50 years. And a great example of that is the Coca-Cola logo. It's one of the most timeless logos I have ever seen. Now, if you think about their main competitor, Pepsi. Pepsi has rebranded 11 times. 11. That's more than 10. It's a lot. Now, think about the size of Pepsi. Think about how much it would cost for a company like Pepsi to rebrand. Let's say $1 million. $1 million times 11, that's a lot of money, give or take. But one thing people don't think about is the implementation of that change. Think about worldwide, all the merchandise, the machines, the cups, everything. That's what costs a lot more than the rebrand itself. So what I'm trying to say here is nobody has the time or money to do right the first time, but they always have the time and money to do right the second time. And as you can see, Pepsi has suffered for that. There's a reason Coke is much better than Pepsi from a brand standpoint. We've all tasted it. They taste very similar. Brand has a lot of power, and this is a great example of it. Now, this image isn't completely accurate, so I'm going to break it down a bit easier for you. So this is the evolution of Pepsi. It's the same as the first image. They've rebranded 11 times. But as you can see, the logo from when they started to now is drastically different. But if you look at the evolution of Coca-Cola, they have actually changed the logo slightly here and there 8 times. But if you look from the late 1800s to now, their logo is pretty much the same. Little iterations have been made, optical adjustments, because back then we didn't think about scale. Now we think about scale. It has to work in small sizes, big sizes. So again, the logo must be timeless and effective in 10, 20, or even 50 years. Now to wrap this all up, the 5 traits of iconic logos is first, it needs to be simple. Simple enough to easily absorb it and understand it. 2, it needs to be appropriate. It needs to be appropriate in the feeling that it conveys for its intended target audience. Number 3, it needs to be distinctive. Distinctive enough to remember seeing it only after seeing it once. Number 4, it needs to be versatile. Versatile enough to work everywhere. And I mean everywhere. You have to use it. And only then can you get to number 5, which is timeless. And that means your logo should be effective in 10, 20, or even 50 years. That's the end of the talk. Thank you for listening. I would love for any questions.